Comrade Nobhala waseFreystata namalungu onke esigungu saseFreystata, members of the NEC, of the ANC, members of the NEC of the Women's League, members of the Youth League, members of the Veterans League, and more importantly, comrades. It's very wonderful to be here again, especially in the Free State. Because the Free State is the home of our organization. And therefore the Free State, led by Comrade Ace, has a bigger responsibility than any of us to be exemplary as the home of the ANC. When it's difficult, we must say, but the Free State is on course. The Free State is united. It's not a mistake that the ANC was formed in the Free State. But we must also remember, as comrades have reminded us, that this year has been declared the year of Oliver Tambo. Now, Oliver Tambo is very important in the history of our organization because he led our organization for the longest time, during the most difficult times. And he brought back the organization, this glorious movement of ours, strong and united. And so, declaring this year as his year is very important. But also, we must look at ourselves, as Comrade Naledi has said, and remind ourselves what is the strategic mission of our organization today. We know that during OR's time, the most important task was to defeat apartheid and colonization of a special type, and it was to build collective resistance. And we know that when this organization was born, it was born not only as the ANC, but also the nation of South Africa, because it was in 1912 that we all declared that we are burying the demon of tribalism, we are going to have loyalty to this movement and to this country collectively. And of course, this country was taken away from us. Our land was dispossessed. I won't say much about that because the comrades ahead of me have said. And so the ANC had to unite the people of South Africa as a whole, had to work with all the organizations, whether it's the Communist Party, SARTU, women, youth, students, right through the times of our struggle in order to defeat apartheid. And it was important to ensure that the organization remained strong, remained united, despite all the difficulties that it faced, and remained united around principles and values of the ANC. And also that it built a strong cadreship that led this organization. And I just want to remind ourselves, because of the difficulties we are facing, of what OR said when he, in 1991, at the 1991 conference, handed over the ANC to the new leadership. When he gave the report of what he and his comrades had done, he gave a long report which I won't go through, but I just want to quote what he said towards the end, and some of you may remember. He said, "Before I sit down, I wish to make a few observations." And he continued to say, "We did not tear ourselves apart because of lack of progress at times. We were always ready to accept our mistakes and correct them. Above all, we succeeded to foster and defend the unity of the African National Congress and the unity of our people in general. Even in bleak moments, we were never in doubt regarding the winning of freedom. We have never been in doubt that the people's cause shall triumph." Now, comrades, Comrade O.R. said this, and he knew through his leadership that there had been bleak moments, they had difficult moments, but the organization never teared itself apart. And we are not going to do it today. So, we have a solid history to build on. It's not like difficulties are coming for the first time today. And we have a history, and we know how our comrades acted at different times of difficulties. And so, when OR handled the organization, of course we were entering a new terrain. We were coming back from exile, and we were coming back from internal MDM, and we had to negotiate. And of course we had to navigate that. At the same time, we had to build structures of the organization, because up to that point, the organization had been illegal. So we had to build the structures of the organization as a legal, open organization. And there were things that guided us, values that guided us. Because our organization has always been focused on serving the people, on leadership that is disciplined, committed, and cadres that were committed and dedicated to the organization. It didn't mean that we did not have differences. Those of you may remember how even when we went to Lutuli from provinces in what was called the negotiations forum, because during the negotiations, the leadership always called representatives from provinces, regions that time, to explain and also get ideas from the provinces and regions. There were robust debates, because you always come with different ideas. There were robust debates, but what guided us was, when those debates were over, whatever was decided, we all marched in one line, in one voice. We've never had a situation where now you come with your ideas, you debate them. If my idea is defeated, and I say, no, the majority thinks like this, it's my responsibility, once the collective has taken the decision, to defend that decision, not to go and say, Tina Bestavumelana. That not our culture. That is not the value of the ANC. Whether you are a leader at whatever level, once the collective has taken a decision, if you feel strongly about that decision, at the next NEC meeting you must raise it again until you convince all of us to go that route. As long as the collective is not convinced, you have a responsibility outside to defend the collective. And so even in provinces, in regions, it must be like that. That's what we know. But of course, the context within which we operate is changing. And so we must always go back, assess, and debate, as the ANC has always done. Of course, we also have principles. Some of them have been our strategic objectives, some of them have been expounded by Comrade Naledi, Msebenzi, and so on. But I think we must always be guided by our strategy and tactics. We must always be willing to renew and to improve our organization. And of course, when we go through elective conferences, we have the eye of the needle that guides us. But as the ANC in this conjuncture, we have the responsibility of building a democratic and a development state which leads social and economic transformation, builds social cohesion, and unites the South African people. Now, a development state is not the same as an ordinary state. A development state intervenes to make sure that there is progress, whether in social or economic issues. So there is nothing wrong when the state intervenes. We are a developmental state and we should intervene. We should also look at the transformation, de-racialization of our economy. And also, women must be part of that economy. So we must make sure that there is inclusive growth, there is shared prosperity. There is no country that I know in the world whose economy is run by the minority in the country. And the mainstream, the majority of the population is not part of the mainstream of the economy. This is South Africa today. And that has to change. It's not sustainable. We can't sustain a situation where the majority of the people are not participating in the economy. So it's not wanting to exclude or to do what, we just want to do what is right. And so that is a task at hand for our organization. Of course, we have to do organizational work to make sure that our organization is strong. Now, comrades, all this talk about radical economic transformation is not going to happen if we are not united. Because it's not going to be easy. We have already seen. It's the first time I hear banks allowing people to go out to the streets and close the banks. It's the first time I hear companies. So it's clear that radical economic transformation is going to be opposed. And if we are not united, how are we going to do it? You know, there used to be a time, I remember when I was in health, I had lots of problems then with all sorts of companies. And I remember one day, Comrade Blade coming to me and saying, my sister, I don't understand these issues of pharmaceuticals, but when I see the forces lined up against you, I know you must be right. Why today do we align ourselves with DA and think we're right? It cannot be. Even if you don't understand the issues, before you understand them, you can attack a comrade. But also, you see who's lined up against or for. If the same oppressors are lined up against you, I must say, I must defend this comrade. That's how we should be in the ANC. And if we think there are mistakes, there'll always be mistakes. Let's go back home, let's discuss them, and let's agree on the way forward. Of course, we also have to, the place where we are failing, I think, and I can say it even better because I've been outside looking inward from outside. We are losing the battle of ideas. Not because we don't have good ideas, but somehow we are not communicating effectively. And so we need to ensure that not only the ideological struggle, but the narrative out there is our narrative. Because at the moment, the dominant narrative out there is not our narrative. Yes. And so our people are getting confused because they are bombarded day in and day out with this narrative that is against the ANC, against our organization. So I think that's one of the things that we must strengthen everywhere. At national and provincial and regional, at the branch level, we must ensure that we communicate with our people effectively. And of course, comrades, we must also remind ourselves that the strength of the organization is in its cadres. In 2012, we declared the decade of the cadre, isn't it? Do we still remember that? So we're 5 years into the decade of the cadre. And it would be interesting to hear, maybe not today, but sometime, province by province, branch by branch, how much work have we done to develop cadres? Comrade Naledi said our membership is declining, but membership alone is an expression of intention to be a cadre. Doesn't mean that when you join the ANC today and pay your 12 rands or 100 rands, you have suddenly become a cadre. A cadre is developed and still in the struggle. So we need to ensure that we develop members that come into cadres. Doesn't happen automatically. And it's very important that our members should have the politics, because when they have the politics, they'll be able to analyze what is going on. They will not be taken by anyone who says, this is right, and they go. You know Comrade Shope, when he did his political work, he would also say, a soldier without politics is a mercenary. What is an ANC member without politics, or an ANC leader without politics? We need to ensure that the ANC politics, the ANC values are instilled in our members. And of course, it doesn't mean that it's an event. We all, at all times, have to keep learning Because, as some of you will know that Comrade Khalima used to like saying, political consciousness does not bid you goodbye. It just disappears. And you think you are still okay, and you say things and people wonder, what has happened? What has happened? And when you don't see, you think you are still fine. So all of us have to keep learning. That's why we come to these forums, because in discussions we learn, we keep attending ANC meetings, we keep reading, so that our political consciousness does not leave us, because it can. So this is not just for new members, it's for all of us, at all levels. And also he used to like saying, comrades, I'm teaching you politics today, so that you can use it one day against me if I deviate from ANC policies. So politics in ANC should be something we live by. It's not an event that happens once a year. It must be something that is in us. So that if I go wrong, Comrade Naledi can say to me, Comrade Nkosazana. Doesn't even have to be Comrade Naledi. Any comrade from the branch can say, Comrade Nkosazana, we are born in Dinati. Awusahambi kahle. Because that comrade in the branch is a cadre. He understands the values, and she understands the commitments, the policies of the ANC. And if I'm no longer going right, he can say, You know, Comrade Batabile talked about the time I was going to the AU. One youth league comrade came to me and said, no, comrade, you must refuse. Why are you going? Why are they sending you to exile? So I said, comrade, it's the ANC that's saying I must go. How do I refuse? How do I tell you tomorrow as the youth that you must obey the ANC if I don't obey the ANC? So, comrades, it's very important to build the cadres in the movement, because it's the cadres that will be able to defend this organization. It's the cadres that will be able to put us in line as leaders if we go wrong. It's the cadres that will ensure that the opposition does not dictate to us, as Comrade Naledi was saying. How dare anyone say, is it not an insult to us as ANC that if we vote in secret, we will vote differently than if we vote in public? I would find that an insult. Because as a public representative, you are there to represent the electorate. And you are there as an ANC MP to represent the ANC. Why do you want to hide from the ANC what you are doing in Parliament? There must be something wrong there. And I'm glad that the ANC has not agreed to that. Because even if you want to vote whichever way, you must do it with integrity and honesty and be able to defend your position. Why do you want to do things and hide and not be known? It's strange. So I just want to also say, cadres at all times must have the revolutionary consciousness, must have the revolutionary discipline as well. They must be committed to serve and love our people. They must be dedicated. As cadres, we must be dedicated. but we must serve with humility, not with arrogance. We must also be ready to self-improve. We must understand our tasks, understand the motive forces, understand the balance of forces, and therefore be able to take the correct decision. We must also have gender consciousness. You can't be a cadre and be a male chauvinist. Cadres, O.R. once said in his speech that no country can boast of being free until the women are emancipated. So, and he said it's not the duty of women alone to mobilize women and emancipate them. It's all of us as cadres. We have that responsibility. And so, as we recruit new members, we must make sure that they are ideologically rooted and schooled in ANC, and they understand our progressive policies, and are able to undertake tasks that are assigned to them. And so, 5 years into the decade of the cadre, it's high time that we review and see how well we've done in ensuring that the decade of the cadre indeed is the decade of the cadre. And we must, as I said, cadres must always be able to, as we are going to do in our policy conference, in our policy discussions, to understand the balance of forces and to understand the motive forces that we have to work with. But again, we must be honest when we analyze what is going on. We can't not admit that the organization is weak at this point in time. And of course, once we are weak and once we are divided, we cannot mobilize and unite society. And the laws of nature, let alone politics, just the laws of nature, do not allow a vacuum. Where the ANC leaves a vacuum, others come in, as we can see. It is also our weakness, to some extent, that we see people now occupying the streets. But we must make sure that we come together and unite so that we can ensure that democracy is upheld. We're not going to have presidents that are elected through the streets when we have a constitution that says how we should elect, how democracy should be. We used to occupy the streets because we had an illegitimate government. And a government that we had no say in, we had no vote. So the only thing we could do was to go to the streets, and our glorious army did its work. Now we have democracy. We must tell them that they must be democratic. They must exercise democracy. The DA cannot want to run this country through the streets or through the courts. They cannot, and they should not. But if we are divided and weak, they will. As we can see, they've started. So it's very important for us not to say, "Hi, lo comrade, if he is a comrade or she is a comrade. A comrade must be a comrade, we must work together. No factions, we must do away with. We must work together. Unity is strength. Unity is strength. Divided we fall. United we stand. So all of us, I'm happy. I see a very strong cadres forum here, and I'm sure the discussions are going to be very interesting. But let me also say, to unite our people, as we have said, we must first be united. And we must go to our people with a program so that we can be united in action in our program. And of course, we must work with the alliance, and we must admit that the alliance is weak, and we should strengthen it, all of us. COSATU must be strong, SACP must be strong, the ANC must be strong, and together we must be strong. If we are not, the enemy will come in. The NEC, as the working committee, as Naledi has said, that we cannot be participating in marches, participating in programs that are not ANC programs, as ANC members and cadres. And comrades, the ANC has done a lot. We all know. Even here in the Free State, we know where we were before '94. We can see a vast difference. And we must be able to communicate where we have done well. But where we have not done well, I must say, is in the economy. And I think we have done well by recognizing that. It's not that we haven't recognized it as the ANC, we have. And that's why we are saying we want radical economic transformation. Because we realize that in the last 23 years, we have not really been able to transform this economy. Comrades, if we look at the economy, I'm not a minister, so Naledi said each minister must talk about their own. So I'll talk as an ANC cadre. And I support, of course, what government is doing, the Minister of Finance, everybody. But I think it's important for us to look at a few things. Why is it that the finance ministry is so crucial? Why is the finance sector so crucial? The finance sector is the commanding height of the economy. If you don't control the finance sector, you cannot control the economy. So where are we in the commanding heights of the economy? Who owns the financial sector? Why is it that me and you cannot easily go to a bank and get some help if I want to start a business? So we must address that. I think this economy can absorb a few more banks, but those banks must have the right orientation in terms of assisting the mainstream economy to absorb the black people in general and Africans in particular. So, and I'm saying this because the ANC, when was it when we decided that the post ban? 2007, we already taken that decision. It's not I'm saying something new. It's ANC policy, but where is the implementation? So we need to speed up. The Women's League, in their last conference, if I remember correctly, they took a decision that there should be a women's bank. We need to look at that and say, how do we do that? Because the people who suffer most, one are black people if they want financial assistance. But within those black people, the women and the youth are the worst. It's very difficult to get financial help. But it's not only in South Africa, it's even in the continent generally, it's the same. Women and youth find it very difficult to get financial assistance. And that must change. The second thing is, I'll talk about what we were discussing in the continent, about mineral resources and natural resources. We're saying the continent as a whole has almost every mineral that every economy in the world needs. Most of the developed economies have developed on our raw materials, whether they be in the East, whether they be in the West. Every country, whether it's Japan, whether it's Korea, whether it's France, whether it's UK, whether it's the US, has always needed what we have. But how come we are not developing? We have, if you look at computers, cell phones, and so on, the rare minerals that you need for that are found here on the continent. But none of us manufacture cell phones or computers. So we must go to manufacturing. We must go to value addition. And we must make sure that we have black industrialists, black-owned companies. Because, yes, we've got BEE, which has worked to a point, but on the whole, the BEE has absorbed black people into existing companies, has not created new companies. So we need to look at how to create new companies so that we can create more jobs, get more revenue for the country, and have shared prosperity. So value addition is very important. And how we use our minerals is important. If we have got minerals here, how come the communities around here, on the whole, tend to be the poorest? And yet, they are sitting on these minerals on their land. Everything just gets taken out and out. We must begin to engage these companies more. We have been engaging them, but I think we need to engage them more. But also, we are saying we have lots of unemployment, which is true. But if we take something raw, whether it's a tomato or an orange, and take it out as an orange to Spain or to wherever, and then Spain makes juice out of it, makes jam out of it, makes paste out of it, they get more money. And they create jobs in Spain with our orange. So we must begin to add value and create jobs here so that we also export manufactured goods more and more. And that will give us more revenue and it will create more jobs. But this is not going to happen without resistance, because those who are benefiting are going to resist. Because if you stop sending things raw, it means they can't create those jobs there to process. So they resist. They will try and divide us. They will try and do everything. But we have a historic responsibility to transform this economy. It's not a choice. Let me tell you what OR said, remind you. I quote, "It is inconceivable for liberation to have meaning without a return of the wealth of the country to the people as a whole. To allow the existing economic forces to retain their interest intact is to feed the roots of racial supremacy and exploitation, and does not represent even the shadow of liberation." So we have a duty. This is what OR said. So until the wealth of this country is returned, it means we do not have even the shadow of liberation. So the struggle continues. And we mustn't be scared. When the opposition says, we can't run, at the face siren of the enemy, since the path cannot be. They must know we are here. The struggle for democracy, we have won, but we cannot sustain democracy if we don't have economic power. Because power is not just the vote. Power is not just parliament, the executive, the judiciary. Probably 80% of the power is the economy, and 20% is what we have. So we must understand that the struggle continues. And once we understand that the struggle continues, we will be able to navigate these difficult times. Because we will know that when the struggle continues, it needs strong cadres, it needs united cadres, it needs action. As Comrade President was saying, people are hungry for action. So we must not be apologetic about the economy. That's what our forebearers said, that's what OR said, and many others. That liberation will truly come when we are also controlling the economy, the wealth of this country. We can't be the majority, the ruling party, but the wealth resides somewhere else. So, comrades, we need, as Comrade Naledi said, to close rank, to have our cadres forums, discuss politics, go out, not only to our members, but to our supporters, to the public at large, and engage. The ANC is an engaging organization. It's not afraid of debates. It debates within itself and outside. Let's engage. Let our people understand what we are trying to do. And let them realize that they have to be part of this struggle for economic emancipation. And once they understand that, we'll have no problems with our people. Yes, we may have problems with others, but our people, we will not. So, I'm also happy with the Women's League, Molo Makelwane, because it is able to know exactly what's going on in your community. Who needs help? Who needs assistance? And they should look up to you for leadership in your community. And once we are leaders in our community, we will be leaders in society, because society is our communities. So it is incumbent upon us as government, as the ANC, to implement. If you look at our policies, most things are there. It's the implementation. We must build capacity to implement. We must make sure that our young people also understand what needs to be done. Because I was talking to some young people and they were telling me what they learned at school. I was shocked. All of us, can we go back and just see what our kids are being taught in these modern C schools? They are actually taught against the ANC. Not that it's propaganda, they are taught at school. So it's not surprising that the kids will think ANC is corrupt, ANC is useless, ANC, because that's what they are fed at school. And I think that must also be transformed. And that's why they can say there was an advantage in being colonized. Because that's what they teach our kids. There is no advantage whatsoever in colonization, but our kids think there is because they are taught that. And before I sit, even at university, some university students were telling me that they are actually not allowed in their thesis, Comrade Naledi, to say South Africa is a democracy. Yes. They are not allowed to say South Africa is a democracy. They advance and others. They say, no, South Africa is not a democracy because it's like a one-party state. Until the opposition takes over, then we can say South Africa is a democracy. And kids have to write it, because if they don't, they will fail. If you want to pass your masters, that's what you have to say. Yes. They are told that there is no freedom. They can't use the word freedom to describe South Africa. So we must really look into, I think what we have been looking at is access, looking at that kids are passing, but we are not looking at what, when they pass, what is the knowledge that has been imparted to them. So I think that's another area that we have to look at. But in conclusion, comrades, I want again, because it's the year of OR, to quote him again. And he said, racial discrimination, South Africa's economic power, its oppression and exploitation of all the black peoples are part and parcel of the same thing. He says racial discrimination and South Africa's economic power, its oppression and exploitation of all black peoples are part and parcel of the same thing. So it means we've done and we've dealt with one part. The other part, which is the economic power, we have not dealt with. So this must be understood that it's part of our mission. It's part of our strategic mission as the ANC to do that. I hear people say in the radio analysts, oh, why now? Why? Anytime it's our mission. Now, tomorrow, the other day, it will remain our mission. Until it's done, it will remain our mission. So, comrades, without taking too much time, because our leader here in the Free State is to talk. I just want to say, comrades, Comrade Naledi, through the NWC report, has given us the marching orders. We go, we mobilize, we organize, we unite, and we lead. Not only our structures, but society. And that's what we must be doing. And we must not allow them to distract us from our strategic mission. And we'll be chasing them there, chasing them there, chasing them there, and not focusing on our strategic mission. We must not allow them to do that. Comrades, those are the few things I wanted to share with you and say, Amandla!